Hi, I'm so happy you've joined me for another video looking at reading a book with me. So let's get to it. Cinderella by the Grimm brothers. So the Grimm brothers are two brothers. Jacob was born in 1785 and Wilhelm was born a year later in 1786. And Grimm were German scholars who created Grimm fairy tales. And they're a beloved collection of stories. They gathered these tales directly from ordinary people and jotted down folk and fairy stories. One such story is Cinderella, which is what we will look at today, and it was created in 1812, which tells of a mistreated girl marrying a prince despite her cruel family. The original Cinderella differs from a lot of the newer versions. So we're reading a book which is over 200 years old, and you're going to see that it's very, very, very different. Okay, let's get started. There was once a rich man whose wife lay sick, and when she felt her end drawing near, she called to her only daughter to come near her bed and said, "Dear child, be pious and good, and God will always take care of you, and I will look down upon you from heaven and will be with you." So, pious means being religious or very devoted to God. And then she closed her eyes and died. The maiden went every day to her mother's grave and wept, and was always pious and good. When the winter came, the snow covered the grave with a white covering, and when the sun came in the early spring and melted it away, the man took to himself another wife. So, wept is to cry, and melted away is when something solid turns to water. So, when something becomes liquid, for example, ice melts to water. The new wife brought two daughters home with her, and they were beautiful in appearance, but at heart were ugly. And then began very evil times for the poor stepdaughter. "Is the stupid creature to sit in the same room with us?" said they. "Those who eat food must earn it. She is nothing but a kitchen maid." They took away her pretty dresses and put on her an old grey kirtle and gave her wooden shoes to wear. To earn something is to receive something for the effort or work you've done for it. So you earn money, but you win a game. And a kirtle is an old word for a very simple gown or a petticoat. "Just look now at the proud princess, how she is decked out," cried they, laughing, and they sent her into the kitchen. There she was obliged to do heavy work from morning to night, get up early in the morning, draw water, make the fires, cook and wash. And you call someone who is proud someone who has a high opinion of themselves. Besides that, the sisters did their utmost to torment her, mocking her, and strewing peas and lentils among the ashes, and setting her to pick them up. In the evenings, when she was quite tired out with her hard day's work, she had no bed to lie on, but was obliged to rest on her among the cinders, and because she always looked dusty and dirty, as if she had slept in the cinders, they named her Cinderella. Utmost means greatest. If you strew something, well, think you can probably guess from the text, but if you strew something, you scatter it or spread it. Obliged or an obligation is something that you have to do. The hearth is the floor of a fireplace. And the cinders is what's the residue, what's left over from like a burning wood fire or coal. That's what's left is the cinders or ashes. It happened one day that the father went to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Fine clothes," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the other. "But what will you have, Cinderella?" said he. "The first twig, father, that strikes against your hat on the way home. That is what I should like you to bring me." And a twig is a small part of the branch as well. So you can see here, these are twigs as well in the picture. And to strike, or that strikes, is that hits, is another way to say hits. So he brought for the two stepdaughters fine clothes, pearls, and jewels, and on his way back, as he rode through a green lane, a hazel twig struck against his hat, and he broke it off and carried it home with him. And when he reached home, he gave to the stepdaughters what they had wished for, and to Cinderella he gave the hazel twig. And you can see in the picture what pearls look like. These are pearls. She thanked him and went to her mother's grave and planted this twig there, weeping so bitterly that the tears fell upon it and watered it, and it flourished and became a fine tree. Cinderella went to see it 3 times a day and wept and prayed, and each time a white bird rose up from the tree, and if she uttered any wish, the bird brought her whatever she had wished for. To be bitter is to be angry or hurt or resentful. And to flourish is to thrive, is to grow, but more than expected, like doing better than expected to flourish. And you can flourish if you're a person, if you're doing really well or being really successful, someone could say that you are flourishing. Now it came to pass that the king ordained a festival that should last for 3 days, and to which all the beautiful young women of that country were bidden, so that the king's son might choose a bride from among them. Ordained is to issue an order, and bidden is to be requested to come somewhere. When the two stepdaughters heard that they too were bidden to appear, they felt very pleased, and they called Cinderella and said, "Comb out our hair, brush our shoes, and make our buckles fast. We are going to the wedding feast at the king's castle." When she heard this, Cinderella could not help crying, for she too would have liked to go to the dance, and she begged her stepmother to allow her. You can see brushing or combing in the picture. That's to comb out your hair. And to make a fast is a clasp that you can put at the end of like a belt. And that's like a belt buckle. And begging is to ask someone to do something earnestly or with intensity. "What? You, Cinderella?" said she. "In all your dust and dirt, you want to go to the festival? You that have no dress and no shoes, you want to dance?" But as she persisted in asking, at last the stepmother said, "I have strewed a dishful of lentils in the ashes, and if you can pick them all up again in 2 hours, you may go with us." And you can see in the picture lentils and beans. So you have a range of different kind of things, and you can see the different beans that we have. Then the maiden went to the back door that led into the garden and called out, "O gentle doves, O turtle doves, and all the birds that be, the lentils that in ashes lie, come and pick up for me. The good must be put in the dish, the bad you may eat if you wish." Then there came to the kitchen window 2 white doves, and after them some turtle doves, and at last a crowd of all the birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering, and they all alighted among the ashes, and the doves nodded with their heads, and began to pick, peck, pick, peck, and then all the others began to pick, peck, pick, peck, and put all the good grains into the dish. Before an hour was over, all was done, and they flew away. A chirp is that small, high pitched sound that a bird makes or an animal makes. It's a chirp, chirping. And to flutter is flying but hovering above. So that's a flutter. So you have to, when birds keep beating their wings really quickly and they hover, they stay in one spot, but they're still in the air. Alighted is when something falls from the air. So birds can alight, and it's when they um, descend from the air and then they sit on the ground. And a peck is really specific for a bird, and it's when it bites something with its beak. That's a peck. But you can also say that someone gave you a peck, which is a quick kiss on the cheek. A peck. Then the maiden brought the dish to her stepmother, feeling joyful and thinking that now she should go to the feast. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no proper clothes, and you do not know how to dance, and you would be laughed at." And when Cinderella cried for disappointment, she added, "If you can pick two dishes full of lentils out of the ashes, nice and clean, you shall go with us." Thinking to herself for that is not possible, when she had strewed two dishes full of lentils among the ashes, the maiden went through the back door into the garden and cried, "O gentle doves, O turtle doves, and all the birds that be, the lentils that in ashes lie, come and pick for me. The good must be put in the dish, the bad you may eat if you wish." Disappointment is an emotion of sadness or displeasure, but it does seem like the stepmother is very, very cruel to keep making her do all of this extra work. So there came to the kitchen window two white doves, and then some turtle doves, and at last a crowd of all the other birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering, and they alighted among the ashes, and the doves nodded when their heads with their heads and began to pick peck, and then all the others began to pick peck, and put all the good grains into the dish. And before half an hour was over, it was all done, and they flew away. Then the maiden took the dishes to the stepmother, feeling joyful and thinking that now she should go with them to the feast. But she said, "All this is of no good to you. You cannot come with us, for you have no proper clothes and cannot dance, and you would put us to shame." Then she turned her back on poor Cinderella and made haste to set out with her two proud daughters. Half an hour is literally half of an hour. So an hour is 60 minutes and half an hour is 30 minutes. And in haste or with haste is in a rush, with speed. And as there was no one left in the house, Cinderella went to her mother's grave under the hazel bush and cried, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come down and cover me." Then the bird threw down a dress of gold and silver, and a pair of slippers embroidered with silk and silver, and in all haste she put on the dress and went to the festival. But her stepmother and sisters did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess. She looked so beautiful in her golden dress. Of Cinderella they never thought at all, and supposed that she was sitting at home and picking the lentils out of the ashes. Embroidered is sewn on, so it's a decoration that's sewn onto a fabric, so in this case, the shoes. And when they entered the house, there sat Cinderella in her dirty clothes among the cinders, and a little oil lamp burnt dimly in the chimney. For Cinderella had been very quick, and had jumped out of the pigeon house again, and had run to the hazel bush, and there she had taken off her beautiful dress, and had lain it on the grave, and the bird had carried away again. And then she had put on her little grey kirtle again, and had sat down in the kitchen among the cinders. Dimly means a very faint light, so quite dark light. The next day, when the festival began anew and the parents and stepsisters had gone to it, Cinderella went to the hazel bush and cried, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come down and cover me." Then the bird cast down a still more splendid dress than on the day before. Splendid is another way to say beautiful and impressive. And then when she appeared in it among the guests, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince had been waiting until she came, and he took her hand and danced with her alone. And when anyone else came to invite her, he said, "She is my partner." And when the evening came, she wanted to go home, and the prince followed her, for he wanted to see to what house she belonged. But she broke away from him and ran into the garden at the back of the house. Astonished is surprised. There stood a fine large tree bearing splendid pears. She leapt as lightly as a squirrel among the branches, and the prince did not know what had become of her. So he waited until the father came, and then he told him that the strange maiden had rushed from him, and that he thought she had gone up into the pear tree. Maiden is a really old time expression, and it just means like a young and a married woman. And this pear tree, well, you can see pears in the picture, what pears look like. And have you got a favorite fruit? Because I really enjoy pears, but probably my favorite is a strawberry. Let's continue. The father thought to himself, it surely cannot be Cinderella, and called for an axe and felled the tree, but there was no one in it. And when they went into the kitchen, there sat Cinderella among the cinders as usual, for she had gone down the other side of the tree and had taken back her beautiful clothes to the bird on the hazel bush, and had put on her old grey kirtle again. And in the picture, you can see what an axe is. And we use it to cut down trees or cut into wood. So, this is what an axe is. On the third day, when the parents and the stepchildren had set off, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said to the tree, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come down and cover me. Then the bird cast down a dress the like of which had never been seen for splendor and brilliancy, and slippers that were of gold. So now we wear slippers around the house to keep our feet warm, but in the olden days, a slipper was any shoe that you could just slip onto, you can slip into, and yes. And when she appeared in this dress at the feast, nobody knew what to say for wonderment. The prince danced with her alone, and if anyone else asked her, he answered, she is my partner. And when it was evening, Cinderella wanted to go home, and the prince was about to go with her when she ran past him so quickly that he could not follow her. And wonderment is a feeling of surprise or awe. But he had laid a plan and had caused all the steps to be spread with pitch, so that as she rushed down them, the left shoe of the maiden remained sticking in it. The prince picked it up and saw that it was of gold and very small and slender. The next morning he went to the father and told him that none should be his bride save the one whose foot the golden shoe should fit. Slender is skinny. Then the two sisters were very glad because they had pretty feet. The eldest went to her room to try on the shoe, and her mother stood by, but she could not get her great toe into it, for the shoes were too small. And then her mother handed her a knife and said, cut the toe off, for when you are queen, you will never have to go on foot. So you have fingers and toes, and your biggest toe is called your big toe. And on your hand, you have your fingers, and then you have your thumb, is what you give thumbs up with. And to be glad is to be happy. So the girl cut her toe off, squeezed her foot into the shoe, concealed the pain, and went down to the prince. Then he took her with him on his horse as his bride and rode off. They had to pass by the grave, and there sat the two pigeons on the hazel bush and cried, there they go, there they go. There is blood on her shoe. The shoe is too small. To squeeze into something is to get into something which has limited space. So sometimes I have to squeeze into my trousers because, especially after I've had like a big lunch or dinner. And you see this word cry, they cried out. Well, obviously, we know that what crying is. Crying is when you're feeling really sad and you have tears on your face. But when you're speaking, you can cry out, which is where you can shout, you can say something, and you're shouting or screaming. It's a way to express yourself. Hello, I cried. Not the right bride at all. Then the prince looked at her shoe and saw the blood flowing, and he turned his horse round and took the false bride home again, saying she was not the right one, and that the other sister must try on the shoe. So she went into her room to do so and got her toes comfortably in, but her heel was too large. Then the mother handed her the knife, saying, "Cut a piece off your heel. When you are the queen, you will never have to go on foot." And false bride is a fake bride. So false is untrue. So you have true and false. And a piece is a part of. For example, you could have a piece of pie. So you're not going to eat the whole pie, you only have a slice of pie, you only have a piece of it. So the girl cut off a piece of her heel and thrust her foot into the shoe, concealed the pain, and went down to the prince, who took his bride before him on his horse and rode off. When they passed by the hazel bush, the two pigeons sat there and cried, "There they go, there they go. There is blood on her shoe. The shoe is too small. Not the right bride at all." And you can see in the picture, the red thing is the heel. So what's been highlighted in red is the heel. To conceal something is to hide. Then the prince looked at her foot and saw how the blood was flowing from the shoe and staining the white stocking, and he turned his horse round and brought the false bride home again. "This is not the right one," said he. "Have you no other daughter?" To stain is to mark or discolor. So you can stain a carpet if you spill something on it. For example, you can stain a white carpet if you spill tea on it. And a stocking is a like tights, you put it on your legs and it keeps your legs warm, but there's many different kind of styles of stockings. "No," said the man, "only my dead wife left behind her a little stunted Cinderella. It is impossible that she can be the bride." But the king's son ordered her to be sent for. But the mother said, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. I could not let her be seen." But he would have her fetched, and so Cinderella had to appear. To be stunted is being prevented from growing or developing properly. So a plant could be stunted because it's not growing that high, because it's not getting enough light or water or space. To fetch is to go and bring something back somewhere. First, she washed her face and hands quite clean and went in and curtsied to the prince, who held out to her the golden shoe. Then she sat down on a stool and drew her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe and slipped it into the golden one, which fitted it perfectly. And in the picture, you can see what a curtsy is when you do a little bow to royalty. That's a curtsy. And you can see how the woman is moving her foot to the side and then she's dipping down. And a stool is a chair. It's a small chair, like a wooden chair. And when she stood up and the prince looked in her face, he knew again the beautiful maiden that had danced with him, and he cried, "This is the right bride." The stepmother and the two sisters were thunderstruck and grew pale with anger, but he put Cinderella before him on his horse and rode off. And as they passed the hazel bush, the two white pigeons cried, there they go, no blood on her shoe. The shoe's not too small. The right bride is she, after all." To be thunderstruck is to be extremely surprised or shocked. To be pale is when you lose colour from your face and your skin complexion turns lighter. You become pale. And riding, you can ride a horse, and then rode is the past tense of ride. And when they had thus cried, they came flying after and perched on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right, the other on the left, and so remained. And to perch is to sit. So you can see a picture of this bird here perching. And when her wedding with the prince was appointed to be held, the false sisters came, hoping to curry favour and to take part in the festivities. So as the bridal procession went to the church, the eldest walked on the right side and the younger on the left, and the pigeons picked out an eye of each of them. To curry favour means to praise someone who has more power, but in an insincere way, in a way that's not sincere, to try and get a favor or some advantage for yourself. So that's to curry favor. And a procession is when a, something happens in an orderly fashion, but a big ceremony, a large group, kind of like a parade. So people walking down the street or cars going, and that's a procession. And it's in an orderly fashion with a fixed route. And as they returned, the elder was on the left and the younger on the right, and the pigeons picked out the other eye of each of them. And so they were condemned to go blind for the rest of their days because of their wickedness and falsehood. And to be condemned is to be sentenced to a particular punishment. So they were condemned for blindness. And when you're blind, you can't see. The end. So, what do you think the moral of this story was about Cinderella? Well, I think three things we can look at from this story from the Grimm brothers is that be kind and nice, because Cinderella shows that being kind to others, even when they're mean to you, is important. Um, that you should never give up. So even if things were really tough for her and she struggled, she never gave up on her dreams. And that you should do good deeds. So the fact that if you do good unto others, others will do good unto you. And because she was kind to the animals, they were kind to her as well. They helped her pick out all of the lentils and put them into the pot. So these are some of the morals of the story. Can you think of any others? And I can't wait for you to join me for another fairy tale where we'll look at morals and in one of our next readings. So bye.